Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy B-Dale. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button, the share button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. In tonight's transmission, we're going to be breaking down the Trumpets of Disclosure that is based on an international geopolitical apparatus that's interconnected to an ecological humanitarian crisis that's based on asymmetrical biochemical and frequency warfare. But before we get started with the transmission, I'm coming out with my first publication called The Sacred Book of the Chosen. And this is just a proof copy. And I'm going to show you, the illustrations that's, on the front cover and the back cover right now. So you already know what time it is. Put the rice bowls in the chat, because it's one of those things where you got to understand you cannot be one-dimensional with the knowledge. You can't be one-dimensional whatsoever. You got to hit them from every side, just like they hitting us from every side with covert operations, right? So we're going to keep cooking up the esoteric knowledge through the books, and we're going to cook it through the transmissions as well. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you what the cover and the illustrations look like. So this is my first publication that I'm, ever putting out. So this is, this is a big thing for me. So you got, the Big Ben cloud talk in the background, which is also a signification of the 6,000 years being up. And then you got the St. Louis Arc. And then you got the rainbow color spectrum on the planet reversing the polarity of the inverted frequencies of Luciferian moon magic. Because one thing you got to understand about Luciferian moon magic, it threw off the golden ratio when you're talking about the Fibonacci sequence that turned the 9-ether into 6-ether by way of the Alpha Trachona star system that was in alignment with the age of Pisces under the lunar frequency. Because one thing you got to understand about planet Earth has been on red alert for about the last 12 to 13,000 years, because the moon is what manipulated the chromosome structure to where it broke down the telomeres by way of chromosome breakage. So that messed up the human circulatory system, which threw humanity out of balance. So that's why everything since the inception of time, when you're talking about the breaking down of the photon hydrogen atom that created a quantum entanglement in a quantum processing system that created a magnetic field around the planet. So with that being said, when you look at, the front cover, it got the pale horse, and it also has the Golden Gate Bridge that's interconnected to Pope Benedict, because he was unalived at 88 years old. So they say, but we know that he's been unalived for many different years since the year of 2017. And the 88 years is equivalent to the Golden Gate Bridge. So there's a signification of a metaphysical codex that also plays a part of the end time prophecies when you're talking about eschatology. So this book is not only based on mind science technology, it's very metaphysical, because it goes in talking about, how to combat generational curses. It talks about the chosen ones. It talks about the NPCs versus the chosen ones in the Christ energy. So this book is basically a one-stop shop on how to level up, as we go through the Great Awakening period, and as you have the Great Separation process that's taking place on the planet when we get into the year of the goat and the sheep, right? And it's all correlated, to the agenda for 2030. So this is what you see and taking place on the front cover. You got the American flag broken up, and like I've been telling you guys about the planes is going to be an influx of crashes, because you having atmospheric changes, which is manipulating the oxidation levels on the planet. And then you also have the Agent Smiths down here at the bottom, which is symbolizing, the veneration for NPCs within the simulation. So this book is going to touch in on everything on all corners. And it's not going to be ready for purchase until October 14th of 2025 on my birthday next month. And it's going to be available on Amazon. I have no pre-orders because in order to get pre-orders, you got to have an ebook, and everything that I'm doing is based on physical copies. So what you see in my hand, this is just a proof copy of it. So, and I'm also going to have many different book signings. So shout out to my elder, King Simon. We setting up a book signing in New York City at St. Nicholas Bookstore. We're going to have one in Atlanta, and I might have one here in Evansville, Indiana. So now this is where you get into, the prophetic foreword for the awakening. And it says verbatim, the sacred book of the chosen is a monumental call to the awakening. This is a sacred scroll that unveils a prophecy impacting Earth from the years of 2025 to the year of 2030, when you're talking about the agenda for 2030, where they want to extrapolate a cybernetic dictatorship that is ran by artificial intelligence to where humans interface with artificial intelligence by way of technological radiation. So it guides the scattered kings and queens of light to shatter the matrix in the final seals. Because one thing you got to understand about the matrix system, in order to beat the matrix and break the matrix, you got to break all the rules, because there's no rules in spirituality. There's no rules, but you have boundaries, because everything in the universe operates on a logistical principle, meaning that it has structure and order. There's no rules, right? So that means that in order to beat the matrix, you got to unhack your brain by, taking off those caps that's connected to the neurons. Because when you're talking about beating the matrix, my nose is itching. When you're talking about the beating the matrix, it's one of those things. It has to be activated by way of mind science technology, meaning that you have to go through the healing process by way of self-realization to activate the spirit of Melchizedek, right? The spirit of Melchizedek is the Christ energy, and the Christ energy is what makes you chosen. And the more you become chosen, you tap into your authenticity. This is where you get the Agent Smiths of the Matrix try to reverse the polarity of the truth that has been hidden by the subjugation period of the moon, right? Because I told you the moon is what's, manipulating the human circulatory system, because the moon is what created the chromosome breakage. The chromosome breakage is the reason why you cannot activate the junk DNA that's connected to your genetic format when you're talking about the unraveling of the Akashic records that is embedded inside the subconscious mind, that is also intertwined with your epigenetics. Everything is inside your DNA. And I'm going to break this down as we get through the transmission. So this book is your map to escape control, unlock divine memory, the Akashic records, and find armor for the coming collapse. Rise to stand among the 144,000 as the new earth is born. New heaven and new earth. Revelations chapter 21, verse 1, right? So this is also another 3D model of the publication, The Sacred Book of the Chosen, The Great Awakening. So this book is going to be very monumental to the shift that's taking place. So this is just not a regular book. This book is a DNA activation and how to level up mentally. This book also coincides with the video that I put out, The Metaphysics of Leveling Up, right? Because you have to raise up your frequency in order to get through the shift. You got to understand that. You can't have a low vibrational ass energy and expect to get through the Great Awakening period. It's not going to work like that. So the frequency on the planet is starting to rise up. So that means that you have to raise up your mental frequency and your spiritual and your physical frequency, meaning that you have to be energetically balanced on all levels in order to harmonize with, the cosmic radiation that's coming to the planet. So this is also another 3D model of the publication. And then eventually I'm going to have audio books, 6 months after the publication has been released and live on Amazon. So like I said before, the book is not available right now. If you search for a name on Amazon, it's not going to pop up. The book is going to be live on my birthday, and that's when it's going to be available for purchase on October 14th. So with that being said, this is what we got. I got the physical copies. I got the physical copies right here. And these are just proof copies. So, shout out to my elder, King Simon, He's the one, you know, last year at the Gathering of the Masters, he was telling me about putting out a publication. He said, you need to be putting out these divine codes. You can't be sitting on information. Put it out into the ethers, right? So with that being said, this is how I came up with the publication. You know, I've been wanting to put a book out for many years, but it was one of those things where you have to operate by way of divine alignment. So with that being said, this is my first publication. Hopefully we can get it to a bestseller, because this book is going to be one of those books where it's going to help people. It's going to help people. It's going to motivate people. It's going to give them that sense of willpower that's tethered connected to the inner child. And the inner child is your creativity. Your creativity is connected to your authenticity. So that's why I said the golden age is only cultivated by creativity, by having an aura. You got to activate the golden light body in order to receive the downloads, because when you activate the gold light body, that creates magnetic filaments, and those magnetic filaments creates a transmission of 90-degree angles of when the sun is projecting these coronal mass ejections, and it's upgrading your physiology to the point where you're able to pull information from the subconscious mind, which is the Akashic records. So this book, this is not just words on paper. This book is going to help you remember, right? It's going to help you unlock the 144,000 echinic keys that's connected to the thymus gland, right? The thymus gland is also comprised of your endocrine system. So this book is going to unlock something within your genetic format in order for you to get through the Great Awakening period. So now we're going to get started with the presentation at hand. So I'm going to bring this back up later on in the presentation. Now, everything that you're seeing taking place with Donald Trump right now is basically the epitome of the trumpets of disclosure, right? Because I keep telling y'all, Donald Trump is the last president. And I say that for a reason. This is why, you know, everything that's taking place on the planet right now, it operates on cycles. And cycles denotes the fact that it's ran by a data system. So when you're talking about, you know, the 9-year and we're in the 9-month, so that's going to be the 999 code as we get through the 99 portal, because the last time we went through the 99 portal was in the year of 2016. And that's when you had the Zika, and that's when Donald Trump was elected in 2016. And that's also during the time when you had the 8.7 magnitude earthquake in Ecuador. So every time that you go through a 9-year, that is a transformation of a shift. And that transformation is interconnected to the energy of 9 that's intertwined with Mars. And Mars is a representation of spiritual transformation and war. So everything that you're seeing right now with Donald Trump, it says right here, let me get this. It says the world will soon understand. Nothing can stop what's coming, right? So this is all connected to the propagation for the agenda for 2030 that is also facilitated by the blueprint for the agenda 2025, right? The agenda for 2025, which is a manifesto that was created by the Trump administration. So it tells you right here, sorry, we are closed. So Washington, D.C. been closed. I keep telling people D.C. doesn't exist no more because they're trying to move the capital over to Colorado, where they have Emerald City. But that's a whole different, you know, transmission right there. So it tells you right here, sorry, we're closed. Talking about, you know, the capital. Breaking, the United States corporation dissolved. It says Trump restores America's sovereignty as maritime law collapses. It's over. The United States corporation has been dissolved. Donald Trump is now commander-in-chief of a sovereign republic. Because I keep telling y'all, since July the 4th of 2020, he signed the Second Declaration of Independence, which made him the 19th president of the republic. Notice you see the number 19 because it's also the epitome of Alpha and Omega that is intertwined with the ancient Alpha symbol that is facilitated by the 3 solar eclipses from 2017, 2023, and 2024. That ancient Alpha symbol is also intertwined with the numerical component of 19 because 19 represents creation and completion, right? So it says it's over. The United States corporation has been dissolved by Donald Trump, is now commander-in-chief of a sovereign republic, not a fake corporate entity. Because one thing you got to understand about the de facto corporation, it was facilitated under the age of Pisces, which is the age of mankind, which is the Canaanite. And the Canaanite was in control during the time when the age of Pisces was under in alignment with the Alpha Draconis star system that is also being controlled by the lunar cycle. So that's why I said planet Earth has been under red alert for the last 12 to 13,000 years. That's because, like I said, the moon is what messed up the human circulatory system and threw the planet off balance. This is why when you go in the courtroom, the scales of justice is basically off balance, because you live in a dualistic paradox. Anytime that's you in a system that's operating by way of polarity, there's always going to be an unbalanced energy. So the fake corporate, apparatus that was created by the Crown Maritime Law, it's dead, right? Which is why the seal off Buckingham Palace is gone, right? And this is why you see the Federal Reserve is being shut down. All these things is happening right now, on the planet, because they're trying to create a synthetic restoration for a synthetic golden age, and they want to achieve it by the year, 2030. So that's why I said, the year of 2027 and 28 is very significant, and I'm going to break that down as we get through the transmission. So America is back under common law, because common law connects you to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right? To where it's connected to the Uniform Commercial Code, Title 18, Section 3002. Articles 1 and 2, clauses 1 and 2, you have a right to a nationality and you have the right to change your nationality. So this is the time, we're supposed to be operating and deviating from the corporate apparatus that was subjugated by democracy, which is your so-called deep state shadow government. So common law is what connects you to the Indigenous People Act, right? Meaning that you have, a pedigree to where you're not non-descendable in the eyes of law. So, and the people are finally free. So we're going through a liberation period. This is why I keep telling people, Donald Trump is playing both sides. He's a Luciferian white hat. He is not, creating this form of liberation because he wants to. He has to do it by way of universal law, right? That's why he keeps saying, oh, I'm the chosen one. You're just here to do a job, but you're still connected to the Canaanite bloodline, because we all seen that you had that headdress that the Ashkenazi Jews that they put on their head as well. You talking about draining the swamp, and you in bed with the swamp. You still working with them people, because it's all a part of, the international geopolitical apparatus when you're talking about a one world government. Now, this is where it gets critical. Now, one thing you got to understand is that, Donald Trump, he's very calculated when it comes to this, political apparatus. And it tells you right here in this publication, it says, President Trump announces he is moving the United States Space Command HQ from Colorado to Alabama. Now, why is that? That's because there's a deep underground military bunker system, cave system, that's in alignment with, I think it's called Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. There's a deep underground military labyrinth system, and it goes all the way to Alabama. Not a coincidence, because in Alabama, they have a mountain system called the Mountain of Health. Now, they said that Donald Trump, he was so-called unalived. That's what everybody was saying on social media. So this is also symbolic to the 3 days of darkness, because the 3 days of darkness is basically him, stepping away from the political apparatus for about 3 days. So the Mountain of Health is not, is one of those things where you got to be very critical about the situation, because Donald Trump, he also has a clone, because the real Donald Trump is inside Cheyenne Mountain. That's when he was in office in 2016. So the real Donald Trump of 2016 is inside of Cheyenne Mountain. So this is why the clone president is trying to move the base over to the Mountain of Health that's in Huntsville, Alabama. Why is that? Because the Mountain of Health is actually a cloning base that's underground in these deep underground military bunker systems, right? That's what you got to understand. Hold on for a second. So this is why Everything is not a coincidence, bro. That's why I said you have to stop tripping over divine alignment and calling everything a goddamn coincidence. They putting the truth in your face every time, but you just got to understand what's taking place on the planet. And it says right here, the White House is closed to the public for the entire month of September due to construction. Right? Now, look at this. Pope's prayer for September, respecting, protecting God's creation. Why are you praying over September for? Because like I said, when you in the 9-month, in the 9-year, that is the 999 code because you're going through an interstellar vortex portal, a different transitional shift to where you're going to have an influx of war and spiritual transformation, right? Because the number 9 is also in alignment with Mars. Not a coincidence. Everything in our universe, everything in the simulation is mathematical. So what you praying for? Why are you praying for the month of September, right? Because they're setting the stage for the next 9/11 event, right? Because, Donald Trump, he's a full disclosure president. And, Pope Leo the 14th, he's also a full disclosure Pope, right? Which is why they talk about it in the prophecies of popes of 2027. Because 2027 is also a 9-year, but it's all based on perception. Because some people put the year 27 at the end instead of 2027. Because the 2 and the 7 together is a 9, and then 2027 all together, that represents 11, a 9/11 year in the year of 2027, right? Everything is a numerical codex. You got to understand that. So he's praying because one thing you got to understand that Saturn retrograde forces us to confront unfinished business, and no zodiac sign is safe. Because one thing you got to understand about Saturn retrograde means that it's basically in conjunction with Pisces because Pisces represents the old world and the old world is falling. So this is why you're seeing like public figures and celebrities like Young Thug is being judged, right? So that means that this is the blueprint for karmic retribution by way of the celestial alignments that's taking place in real time that corresponds with our genetic format, right? That also corresponds with historical context and spiritual context as well. So there's an influx of energies on the planet right now by way of Saturn retrogrades in Pisces, because Saturn represents karmic retribution, but the age of Pisces represents the old world. So everything that subjugated us in the old world is going to crumble, because Saturn is also the embodiment of the illusion, because it represents the magneto-hydrodynamic on the Cassini gaps on the rings of Saturn that creates a holographic projection that is being sent here from the energy of the moon. So that's why the great majority of their incantations is based on Luciferian moon magic, right? That's why we in eclipse season right now. Everything that you're seeing taking place right now is basically ritualistic timestamps for the Great Reset. So I'm going to show you a video for a second because I'm going too far into the transmission. So I'm going to show you this video. I'm going to show you this video for a second. Like I said, if you're new to the channel, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. We have a multitude of people, about 70% of the people who watch this channel, 60%, they're not subscribed to the channel. So please hit that subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to show you this video here. Hold on for a second. All right. They did so many things new to this, so that's why it's kind of weird for me right now. So I'm going to play the video.
Let's head to the States now, and a conspiracy theory has gone viral on social media with growing concerns over Donald Trump's health and whereabouts.
Yeah, let's go live to 9's US correspondent Reed Butler. Reed, people have been posting the hashtag "Where is Trump?"
Yeah, exactly. And today we have had this update. We have seen the US president in person as he made his way out to the golf course, which isn't exactly news because he does that pretty much every weekend. But the reason everybody is talking about it is because the US president has not been seen in public for several days. And now that is unusual because normally the 79-year-old is everywhere, as we know. But these pictures...
See, I need you to understand something. I talked to the OG Rod Hayes for about 3 hours the other day. And we was basically exchanging esoteric information. So me and him came to terms with the fact that, you know, Donald Trump being away for 3 days was symbolic to the 3 days of darkness. You got to understand that. So that's why I keep telling y'all, you know, everything as far as their political infrastructure is really a microcosm of the macrocosm. So everything that they're telling you in the media actually corresponds with something that's, you know, more metaphysical instead of actually, you know, physical when you're talking about everything that's intertwined with their government infrastructure and things of that nature. So the 3 days that Donald Trump was gone, that was symbolic to the three days of darkness, because that means that he's setting up the blueprint and the stage for the Great Reset. This is why I'm putting out the book, talking about the sacred book of the chosen, right? This is the reason why we have to be prepared. And so, you know, as we get through the shifting process, you got to be prepared for it. You have to be in alignment.
Prove that he is still here. People online were saying that maybe something had happened to him or he'd had a health scare. That hashtag "Where is Trump" went viral. Indeed, he has had health issues recently. He's been diagnosed with a vein condition that has led to swollen ankles, and he's also been seen with big bruises on his hands, which he covers with makeup. But further fueling the conspiracy too was the US Vice President, J.D. Vance. He recently said in an interview that he was willing to step in and ready to step in if needed, if there was a terrible tragedy. That fueled the speculation even more, but today, no terrible tragedy. He's just been golfing with his granddaughter, Kai Trump. Everyone just needs to calm down, guys.
Crisis averted. Reed Butler, thank you. They do love a conspiracy theory, don't they?
Just a little bit.
You know, Michael, California Governor Gavin Newsom also warned about the country slipping into authoritarianism and predicted Trump will resist leaving office. Listen to this.
I don't think Donald Trump wants another election. You think for a second you want... I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
I need you to understand something. Everything that they put in the media right now is full disclosure. They're not lying to you no more. They can't lie to you as we in the sun cycle, right? Because the sun cycle denotes the fact that it's the great revealing of what they call revelation, because the sun is going to expose everything. That's what solar cycle 25 is all about, because when you pierce the veil, that means that you have an influx of neutrinos that's manipulating the firmament, that's manipulating the energetic energy grid, right? That controls all technological devices. And you have the activation of the Schumann resonance, because the great majority of, as far as like the internet and technology, a lot of it is being controlled in the oceans as well. So everything is being manipulated. So this is why they got to give you the truth right now. I keep telling y'all, Donald Trump is the last president, right? He's the last trumpet. He's the last trumpet of what they're talking about in Revelations, right? Trump is the trumpet, right? It's not a coincidence, because they also want to start building these cities, these smart cities, by the year of 2028. So it's not a coincidence that Donald Trump, he's propagating the fact that he's going to be elected again in 2028 because he's the last president. Because anytime you have a republic, you cannot have a manipulation process of the Geneva Convention codes, right? Because you're going back to common law. Common law is the law of the land that's connected to the indigenous people. So that means that there is no de facto corporation that's infiltrating, because the shadow government, you know, they're being manipulated and compromised because they got to go to the Gitmo bases and things of that nature. But that's a whole different transmission.
And you think he's going to run again?
Don't give me. You don't. Who spends $200 million on a ballroom at their home and then leaves the house? This is serious.
You may have just heard former White House attorney Ty Cobb say to me in the last segment, the last question I asked him, what is it that Trump has not yet done that you worry he will do? And he said, very simply, try to stop an election.
So this would be one. We can roll through some of this. Trump reappeared on Monday after questions had been.
So what they're basically telling you in real time, for those who's not able to comprehend and translate what's being extrapolated on the multimedia, what's happening is that there's going to be a 9/11 event, and that's going to destabilize all international governments. And when international government is basically manipulated, that is a Geneva Convention violation, to where you have the continuity of government through FEMA and martial law takes over everything that was created under a demonstrative government, right? Because it's all connected to the law of the land. You're going back into common law. There is no more de facto corporation that's being facilitated by the Canaanite. Because like I said, all Donald Trump is doing, he's setting up the stage to where the meek shall inherit the earth. But the process is going to be very, there's going to be a lot of afflictions going through this process. There's going to be a lot of degradation. There's going to be a lot of neutralizing when it comes to this process. Because like I said, Donald Trump, he's not hitting the reset button because he wants to, he has to.
Race. He reappeared on Monday with the bruises on his hands again. We've seen sort of splotches of foundation rubbed over the bruises at different points too. So sometimes you see the bruising visible, and then sometimes you see the foundation, like right there. If you're listening to this, it's exactly what you think it is. You've probably seen the pictures already on your own, but that's what Alex Jones is going to be reacting to here in this clip. And again, Ryan, Trump, 79 years old, probably not surprising to anybody that he might have some health complications. Let's roll Alex Jones, B2.
Because you can see him declining faster and faster. It's not super bad yet. I predict Trump is going to have some type of collapse within the next 12 months at the current trajectory. I'm not saying he's going to collapse. I'm saying if he doesn't take his foot off the gas pedal, I guarantee you, and I've got stamina, way better than most people. If I had Trump's job at 51 for a month, I would have a nervous breakdown. I've seen a lot of signs of Trump declining. The fear that he's getting sick, that who knows what's going on. His ankles are giant. That usually means serious.
Now, remember, they also showed you in The Simpsons on how he was so-called unalived as well, Donald Trump. Because like I said, the perception of art imitates reality. And if you see it in the movies, if you see it in the cartoons, over the course of time, it has to embark upon our reality, because in the realm of probability, if you see it, think it, draw it, or whatever, it has to materialize in physical form by way of manifestation.
Heart decline. I mean, liver failure too, but his eyes aren't yellow. So he's saying, I don't know if I'm doing a good job. I don't know if I'm going to get into heaven. I hear I'm not doing a good job. This is the president of the United States calling into Fox News in the morning saying this.
Okay, so what Alex Jones was just referring to, let's skip ahead to B5. This is Trump talking about how he will, asking whether he will go to heaven in regard to ending the conflict in Ukraine.
If I can save 7,000 people a week from being killed, I think that's I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons.
So is Trump trolling, or is he serious when he jokes about sticking around through 2028 or running again? I mean, regardless of our constitutional constraints, why does he keep talking about Trump 2028?
He's dead serious. I mean, this is the way that he operates.
I keep telling y'all, by the year of 2028, they want to have a smart cities in LA. And this is why they, trying to create the Olympics in LA right before it's going to get flooded. And something's going to happen to the Golden Gate Bridge before the year of 2028. And then you just had Lake Tahoe. They had an earthquake over there. And then you have the atmospheric changes over in California, which manipulates the geographical areas in that landmass. So 2028 is a significant year when you're talking about the influx of the smart cities, right?
Floats something as a joke, and then he actually ends up doing it. I have real concern that we may not have a free and fair election in the midterm elections next year and in the presidential in 3.5 years. And so I think for all of us who care about this democracy, we should take him at his word and stop assuming that things are just going to work out because they always have. He's broken nearly every rule that there is as it relates to.
He's able to break the rules because, like I said, there are no rules in common law, but there are boundaries, right? Everything in the universe moves on the logistical principle by way of the law of correspondence. What takes place on the cosmos, what takes place in hollow earth has to correspond to what's taking place on the surface of the planet that's connected to our reality. So, there's going to be something where, the governments or international governments is going to be destabilized to the point where there's not going to be an election and he's still going to be the president. So that's why he's breaking the so-called rules, because there is no rules in common law. We don't deal with, paper genocide and things of that nature. The law of the land that only corresponds with those who have the mitochondrial DNA of the mycelium network that's connected to the black woman, right?
Being president of the United States, there's no reason we should assume that he wouldn't break this one as well, specifically because he's joked about it so many times.
Last word to you on this, Charlie. What do you fear, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I'd like to think that he is trolling. But again, this is very unsettling that he continues to float this idea of running in 2028. It's clearly something that he is not permitted to do under the law or under the Constitution. And should he decide he wants to run for a third term, now there is your there is your crisis. And at some point, now the U.S. Supreme Court is going to have to stand up and stop this from happening. But it's frightening. I mean, all this stuff is frightening and unsettling.
Whether you like it or not, there's going to be, Donald Trump is still going to be the president. Anytime you have the continuity of government, that means that FEMA can take over and activate martial law. And he's still going to be in office. I keep telling y'all, he is not the president of the corporation. He's the president of the republic, because a republic is for the people.
We wish it would all go away, but I don't know. I wish none of us really know how this is going to end, but I fear it could end badly. We saw what happened after the 2020 election. It ended very badly with the assault on the Capitol, and we all just fear that something similar could happen again.
Spotted at last. For a man who's hogged the limelight these last several months, Trump's being out of the camera gaze for nearly 3 days got the rumor mills churning like crazy. These pictures this morning of President Trump leaving the White House for a Sunday round of golf silenced some raging and bizarre theories. And like digital lightning, suddenly timelines across X, Facebook and TikTok were flooded with one shocking phrase. The trend also taps into an undercurrent of public discourse about the 79-year-old president's health, which has been a topic of persistent speculation. Recently, images showing bruises on Trump's hand only add to the speculation. The US Vice President said in an interview a few days ago that he is ready to step in as Commander-in-Chief if needed. Yes, terrible tragedies happen, he said. Vance, in the same interview given to you...
Not a coincidence, but if you look at the cover of my book, he looks just kind of like J.D. Vance, right? The Vice President. The guy right here surrounded around the agents, right? Because that's what I saw. So if something happens to Donald Trump and he ends up in office, this is basically in alignment with, prophetic divination by way of imagery. Because one thing you got to understand about, before I do my transmissions, everything is based on what I see. I make my thumbnail before I get into the edification and the knowledge and before I set up the presentation, because I have to see it in order for me to materialize the information in real time and give it to you guys in a book or whether it's in a video.
USA Today asserts that President Trump is in incredibly good health. The White House released the president's physician's report, which said that Trump is in robust health and remains fully fit to execute the duties of the presidency. So clearly, despite the digital storm, there's no credible medical evidence to suggest Trump's health is in danger.
Mr. President, I invite you to see your big, beautiful face on a banner in front of the Department of Labor, because you are really the transformational president of the American worker.
Well, this is the banner the Labor Secretary was referring to, unfurled, in fact, this week outside the department headquarters. One op-ed in The Hill argues those Trump banners reveal his, quote, authoritarian ambition. In fact, Max Burns writes, up until now, presidents haven't needed to be glorified in this way, but Trump's, quote, need for validation is leading our nation down the dark path of strongman autocracy from which few countries have returned. Is Burns overreacting? And if not, Charlie, what's to stop it?
Well, look, he might be overreacting a little bit, but it is kind of scary and it's frightening, frankly, that the president of the United States image has to be hung over government buildings. And you know, in watching that cabinet meeting, I was just relieved nobody used the term "dear leader," I guess. But it's certainly something that we don't expect to see in democratic societies. We don't see this in Western Europe or Japan or you know, Australia or Canada, and certainly not in the United States. But we are now seeing it, which it sends a signal that this type of glorification of the president is well, it's almost undemocratic, I guess. But I just hope that
hear what he said, undemocratic, because like I said, Westernized democracy is hypocrisy. Because Westernized democracy actually goes against the American people, because that's how they created their corporate apparatus. They created a third-party entity to extract the energy from humans, right? So that's why I said anything that's outside the confines of Canaanite culture and hedonistic culture is actually restoring, you know, everything back to the original people by way of the land. So this is why I said we don't want reparations. We want the land back. Most of the Democrats, they want the reparations. But the people who is connected to the Republic, because the Republic is for the people, we want the land back. We don't give a damn about no reparations. What the fuck you gonna do with reparations if the grid goes down, right? We want the land back.
It doesn't go beyond this, but I would like to think that more Republicans would push back on this. They cannot feel comfortable with any of these types of images being draped over government buildings. It's really unsettling.
So with that being said, I think I got another video for you guys. So everything that you're seeing taking place right now in real time, got to be very critical, because it's going to get ugly. They just setting the stage for it. Remember, I was telling you guys about Project Pogo and Project Zypher that's intertwined with the Secretary of State of 1975, Henry Kissinger. He came out with the National Memorandum 200, and it's based on an unaliving program that is targeted towards Black people that is connected to Donald Trump's manifesto for 2025, right? I'm going to play the video.
7693. There are translation services available and people ready to help. Our goal is not to scare anyone, but to prepare everyone to face some ugly realities in the coming days. Many Illinoisans who look a certain way face what.
So like I said, Donald Trump, he's going to deploy the military in Chicago, right? And just, you know, Labor Day weekend, you know, you had about, you know, 8 people unalived and about 50 people, you know, they got, you know, shot up basically. So it's one of those things where you got to be critical, because like I told you, they're using psychotronic magic to create the Hegelian dialectic principle, problem, reaction, solution. The same thing that they did with when it comes to the Twin Towers and things of that nature. They did the same damn thing, right? All they did was they set the stage for a police state. And this is where, you know, George Bush, he created the Patriot Act because of 9/11, and then Obama extended it, which sent the alley-oop to Donald Trump to create a police state that is being controlled by artificial intelligence through the smart cities. So the same thing is taking place when you're talking about, you know, everything as far as like the infiltration of Chicago and DC and all these other cities that have an influx of so-called Blacks there. They're using psychotronic magic by way of the Hegelian dialectic principle. They're controlling people and manipulating them to make them carry out certain agendas to where they can bring the military in. You can control people mentally by way of frequency. They got, you know, They got supersonic octave weapons that can manipulate and rewire the neurotransmitters and making, you know, an influx of people go out and do crime, basically. They have the ability to do that, right? Because that's the only way this system survives. It has to be a form of criminality on the planet, and it has to be other people that's, you know, propagating peace. So that's why I said everything is an unbalanced energy. In order to keep their system running, they have to keep the criminality going. And how they do it, they're using frequency, psychotronic magic, frequency modulation. I keep telling people that. That's why I say you got to keep your frequency high. Now we're going to get back to the presentation at hand. So everything that you're seeing taking place right now, when you're talking about Saturn retrogrades in Pisces, that is basically breaking down the old illusions that was connected to the Piscean age of darkness. So everything that you're seeing taking place right now, as we go through the 99 code portal, this is going to be the unveiling of everything that's going to be taking place on the planet, because also this is in connection with November, because November is really a tuning fork, which is in a number 11. And the number 11 denotes the fact that the veil is thin because it's connected to the star Polaris. Now, it tells you right here, I told you, Saturn in retrograde with Pisces, which represents the old world. Everything as far as like the corporate apparatus of westernized democracy was basically under, you know, democratic code. Anything that was under democratic code is what created a demonstrative government, and it created a corporate apparatus. When you're talking about the CDC and all these other government enterprises that's connected to, you know, the deep state. So this is why the CDC's population health office is gone. Just like they took away the programs as far as like weather modification and the satellites or whatever. They're telling you they can't read the weather. They can't send out Amber Alerts. Now they're not even going to tell you about a health crisis through the CDC because that's gone. So what they're basically trying to do, they're trying to hit you from all angles. So that's why I said you got to keep pushing out the knowledge. You can't be one-dimensional, because they're not being one-dimensional. They're going to hit you from every side. They're going to hit you from every angle. That's what you got to understand. So the CDC's division of population health was eliminated in its entirety, with an exception of behavioral risk factor surveillance system, sources told MedPage Today. So they're getting rid of everything, right? Because everything that was under the Piscean age of darkness has to be eradicated during the time of the sun cycle. Everything that was created under the age of Pisces has to be gone. That's the old world. We're in the age of Aquarius now. We're going to the golden age, right? We're going to the golden age. So this is why you're seeing, you know, an influx of energies that's manipulating the geographical areas on planet Earth. Earth's shield is breaking apart. Massive magnetic field hole above South America is now split into two dangerous zones. Now, it says right here, the zone Atlantic anomaly, a weakened region of Earth's magnetic field over South America, is increasingly threatening the functionality of the space technology, prompting urgent scientific investigations into its evolving dynamics, right? Because one thing you got to understand about a black hole has the ability to reverse the polarity of the sixth ether energy that was tether connected to the moon, to where the Fibonacci spiral sequence, which is the golden ratio, goes right back into non-ether balance. So this is why you're having an influx of energy here, right? This is why they're using Luciferian moon magic to combat the energies of the sun cycle, right? Because they know that you having an increase of the magnetic field being activated by way of the magnetic filaments that creates an electrical conduction. And that electrical conduction has a vibration of magnetism to it. So this is why Japan released a Mount Fuji eruption warning with an eerie AI simulation. The perception of art imitates reality. In the realm of probability, if you put it in a book, you put it in a movie, it has to materialize in physical form by way of manifestation. It has to, because it operates under the threefold law. They telling you about, you know, the average tornado risk area in September. They telling you in real time. Then they telling you right here, let me blow this back up for a little bit. It says Governor Healy has officially proclaimed September 2025 as Emergency Preparedness Month in Massachusetts. The month-long initiative highlights the importance of planning ahead for disasters such as hurricanes, floods, winter storms, power outages, and other emergencies that can impact our communities. So why y'all setting up the blueprint, right? It's almost like they're trying to telegraph something. It's like they're telling you without telling you. So that's why I said you have to keep your frequency high. Mental and spiritual fortitude is the gateway and the cosmic key to the golden age, right? You can't bring three-dimensional ass energy into the fifth dimension. So that's why I said you got to get rid of that parasitical energy to where you're not able to extrapolate knowledge and use your own discernment. So that's why I said you got to start, you know, the more that you see the rise of artificial intelligence, the more you should start writing and reading. You got to watch this movie called Fahrenheit 451 or 351. In that movie, the great majority of the books were basically exiled. Why? Because they don't want people to have independent thought. They want to neutralize people by making them operate by a place of conformity. They want you to conform to a system that is basically unnatural. They don't want people who have authenticity. That's what the books is for, because the books is what helps you remember. The book is what helps you tap into the download to where you get clarification, to where you don't have irresolution and instability in your life. So that's why I said they're going to hit you from every side. So that's why I said you got to keep your frequency high. And then they tell you right here, France orders hospitals to be ready for war by next year as Germany warns it is on alert should Putin use forthcoming military drills to attack Europe. Not a coincidence. And then you got this right here. You got UFO whistleblowers poised to drop evidence within 72 hours. Dr. Stephen Greer hints at historic extraterrestrial disclosure. Now I'm going to show you something because, like I said, you cannot hide from the damn sun. Everybody put the rice bowls in the chat. You cannot hide from the sun because that is the great revealing of what they call revelation, right? That is what you're talking about, you know, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, because the four horsemen of the apocalypse is basically the four basic elements of earth, air, water, and fire that collaborates with ether. And ether, when it's tether connected to the sun, it has the ability to expose everything that's connected to the illusion. You cannot hide from the sun because the sun is going to reveal everything. We're in solar cycle 25. So this is why they got to give you full disclosure about everything. The trumpets of disclosure is taking place right now, but you got to hear it. You got to hear the octave vibrations, right? Because imagery is also an accumulation of sounds. It has a neural network that's connected to our neurological functions. Because the more that you see stuff, it's going to pull information for the subconscious mind, which is basically a mathematical equation, right? I'm going to get into that as we get through the presentation. I'm not going to break that down too much, but I got a video to show you. So this video is based out of Brazil. This video I'm showing you is based out of Brazil. And supposedly they came across some extraterrestrial entities, right? And it's been going viral on Twitter. So I'm gonna play the video, and you know, because the video pretty much speaks for itself.
Isso aqui é uma foto mesmo tirada.
Não, isso aí é real.
Não, olha o negócio.
Rick, vai com ela. A Cida falou, escuta, a Cida falou que se e você tirar várias, porque aparece coisa que você não vê. Eu vi mais coisa, Lu.
Pause this. It says, developing exclusive. Here is the alleged photo of 7-foot-tall aliens in Peru that the locals are calling Pelicaris, or the face pillars. A face pillar is basically a nomenclature title for a skinwalker. A skinwalker is also interconnected to a shapeshifter. So on October 15th, a day, which is, so this is not a coincidence. My birthday is October 14th. So on October 15th, the day after the solar eclipse of 2023, Daily Star of the United Kingdom verified that this was an upload by a man who lived in Alto Nene, Peru. He claimed this was his lawn. So like I said, this is a day after that solar eclipse that also created the ancient alpha symbol of the number 19, which is Alpha and Omega. So everything that you're seeing taking place right now is a form of prophecy, right? I'm gonna play the video.
Eu não vou tirar foto lá. Uma vez eu deixei uma lata. Você chora quando você vê. A energia dele é tão poderosa. Não, se flutua. Você quem tirou a foto? A dona Cida disse que ela flutuava. Flutuou quando ele apareceu pra mim. Mas a dona Cida veio. Eu não vim pra cá pra não poder ver de novo. Por isso que é tudo. Que eu vou lá. Mas ele tem quase 3 metros de altura. Olha ele aqui, ó. Olha ele lá, tá vendo?
Olha, isso aqui é foto que tiraram?
Foto que eu tirei.
Ah, você...
Lá na floresta que eu vou.
Ele é um ser que aparece...
Na floresta. Não, aqui eu não quero ver das pedras. Olha ele lá, olha ele.
Olha isso aqui.
São guardiões da mata, né?
Guardião da mata.
Tem guardião do lobo também, né?
Ele aparece na boca da noite.
Aquele que faz... Aparece na casa da mata é guardião do lobo.
Tinha um pai da mata. Não, olha essa foto aqui. Você. E a do anjo? Passa.
Vocês dois.
Olha só.
They're showing you is a black hole because what you got to understand is that a black hole has the ability to take you to a different space and time. It's able to fold time, because one thing you got to understand about the quantum mechanics of numerology, numbers is able to bend time, because numbers in itself is nothing but a mirror flip. So you can basically time travel through dark matter energy through the numbers, and I'm going to break that down as we get through the presentation as well.
Uma foto isso aqui. Cadê a do anjo? Mostra a do anjo de novo.
A do céu é mais... Não, aquele brilhoso perto da Casa das Pedras.
Olha aqui essa foto. Olha, tipo um anjo bem aqui em cima. Tá louco.
So with that being said, hold on. All right. So with that being said, it's one of those things where you got to be very, critical. You got to use, your own logical assertions, because it's not one of those things where you be like, well, damn, aliens are real. Yeah, they're real, because it's not one of those things where you got to be practical. Like, they have the technology to create, whatever they want in the system. They have the technology to create, the hybridization of extraterrestrials. Then you cannot negate that, the Dogon tribe of Mali, they had the constellations mapped out right before NASA. So where they get that edification from, they got it from higher intelligence, right? And who was that higher intelligence? It was the Nomos, right? Who came from the waters. So there's a reason why the Dogon tribe of Mali, they have a connection with the Sirius A and the Sirius B star constellation, because the trajectory of Sirius A and Sirius B, when they intertwine, it creates a DNA sequence. It creates a DNA strand, because when you tap into the epigenetics of your DNA, this is where you're able to get the transmission from the Nomos when you're talking about celestial alignments and when you're talking about prophecies and premonitions, because that means that the ancestors have to work through us. And it's also a reason why the trajectory of Sirius A and Sirius B is basically an emulation of the Dogon cave, because inside the Dogon caves, they have a lot of, hieroglyphic information, which is sacred writings. And it talks about UFOs that's going to come to the surface of the planet through the water, and it's going to have like 3 legs or whatever. It's kind of like the same shit that you see in the movie Stranger Things, right? And this is all inside the Dogon caves. And the Dogon caves is being, gatekept by sacred, elders. And these elders are not allowed to be touched. They're not allowed to be talked to. They have to gatekeep the cave, because there's about, 7,000 years of information inside the cave talking about, futuristic events that's going to be taking place on the planet, right? So that's why I said it's not one of those things where you got to be like, well, I don't believe in aliens. It's not about that. It's not about that. You have to be very logical and understand that they have the technology to create aliens if they want to, right? By way of genetic hybridization, because you cannot negate Where did the Canaanite come from? He came from genetic hybridization over the course of time when you're talking about genetic splicing, right? So everything can be created in the simulation. So don't be ignorant to that. Don't let people be like, well, I don't believe in extraterrestrial. It ain't about that. They can create, you know what I'm saying? They can create extraterrestrials. But back to the presentation. We're going to get back to the presentation at hand. So now, so this is why they're going to have full disclosure over the course of time. Not a coincidence. And then you got this stuff going on. You got a lot of seismic activity in McDermott volcanic fields in the volcanic region, about 75 miles wide. And then you got the earthquake epicenter clusters in Yellowstone being activated. Because I keep telling y'all, physical destruction is facilitated by spiritual energy that's transmuted from the cosmos. Everything that you see taking place outside of the ice wall, whether you say the planets is outside of the ice wall or outside of the firmament, whatever, the planets corresponds what's taking place on planet Earth. So that's why the Ring of Fire is going to get activated, because the Ring of Fire solar eclipse on 2023 of October 14th on my birthday. That was the Ring of Fire solar eclipse that put judgment over the planet. So this is why in real time, the Ring of Fire is being activated, right? The planet is being judged. Because I keep telling y'all, planet Earth has been under red alert for the last 12 to 13,000 years, because the moon is what manipulated the human circulatory system to where it basically inverted the natural frequency. So now everything is going through a restoration process, but the restoration is going to be a form of destruction, which is actually our liberation. Then it tells you right here, prepare for war. France orders hospitals to be ready for World War III and treat hundreds of wounded soldiers per day in less than a year. I keep telling y'all, something is coming. This is all connected to the fourth turning of a seculum of a cycle when you're talking about the 80-year theory. Every 80 years, there's a crisis. And the last crisis that we had was in 1945, which was the end of World War II. We're going to have another war, right? Whether it's a World War III or a Civil War, something's going to happen. And it's going to happen on American soil, because this geographical landmass has to be overthrown. This is why when you go to Jonah chapter 3, verse 5, it says that Nineveh shall be overthrown, because Nineveh, that was connected to the Assyrian Empire, is a nomenclature title for Babylon, which is America. Because Babylon, which is the baby lion, this is what created the 13 colonies over in America, because it's connected to the United Kingdom that also created the corporate apparatus that's connected to the Federal Reserve System. So that's why I said this landmass has to be judged. There's a reason why the 2024 solar eclipse went through 7 cities called Salem, because, you know, the degradation that's going to be put on this planet, because Salem means peace. So that means that the destruction is our peace over the course of time. So that's why I said, and when you're following the path of the middle way, that is the spirit of Melchizedek. So by way of universal law, you're automatically going to be protected as the planet is going through an afflictional process. So this is showing you emulation of the blue sun. The blue sun is the electrical sun, and the electrical sun has quarks and leptons that's able to manipulate the space-time continuum. This is what you're talking about, the Higgs boson particle. So the blue sun, what they're talking about, the blue star Kachina, it has the ability to reverse the frequencies of the democratic energy that was created by Canaanite culture. So this is why I keep telling people, the 3 suns is basically connected to the astrocytes. The astrocytes is the postsynaptic, presynaptic, and the trisynaptic functions of the brain that activates the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant is actually connected to the Philosopher's Stone, because that's when the pineal gland goes through crystallization when you're talking about the calcites and the appetites. So that's why I said, when you're talking about the Elohim and the Anunnaki, they're talking about mental archetypes, right? They're talking about mind, science, technology, and mental activation. It's not actually talking about entities that's coming down to the planet, even though we do have them, but they're not coming back right now. They have to work through you, right? Because the neural network information operates on an alphabetical sequence that's connected to the soul, Solomon's temple, which is the soul of man. So that's why when you look at a Moravian symbol is a tetrahedron. And a tetrahedron is basically a three-dimensional tesseract. No, it's a three-dimensional it's a three-dimensional Star of David, put it like that. Because when you break down the etymology of Solomon, it means the soul of man. So the soul of man operates on fractions of light that's connected to the Fibonacci spiral that operates at 90-degree angles. So when you look at the Seal of Solomon, these sigils is basically an emulation of how these coronal mass ejections or these sunspots that hit the planet, because this is basically the sign of the Lamb. The sign of the Lamb is the non-ether. So that's why you see 90-degree angles when you're looking at the Fibonacci spiral, which is the fingerprint of the universe that's connected to all these sigils, which is basically an emulation of these solar flares that's hitting the planet. Because the solar flares come at 90-degree angles, a L, which makes you an Elohim. That's why I said the return of the Anunnaki is you. It ain't no damn celestial beings coming back. Not right now. They're not going to come back right now because you haven't upgraded spiritually. You haven't upgraded physically. Just imagine if the Anunnaki came back right now. Y'all going to try to hang out with them, smoke with them, drink with them. Y'all going to try to do all types of low vibrational shit. Y'all going to try to bring the Anunnaki to the club. But nobody want to do that. Like I said, that's all connected to the old world. Right? It's one of those things where you got to be very practical because, you know what I'm saying, a lot of people, we're not psychologically ready to see, you know, many different celestial entities that's coming to the planet. But, you know, best and believe, you know, over the course of time, they're going to have to reveal themselves, right? They're going to have to reveal themselves, but they're not going to reveal themselves right now because we're still stuck at a low vibrational state. We got too many people sleep on the planet right now. Too many. So, and then, let me see. So these fractions of light, they operate and it activates the magnetic field of the planet, because the magnetic field on the planet basically has like a torus field. So not only do we have a life force, but the planet Earth is a living entity, so it also has prana. Anything that has prana has a life force, and the life force in itself is connected to the Schumann resonance that's activating the magnetic field. So anytime that you see the aurora borealis, that is an influx of gamma radiation that's coming to the planet to activate, you know, those who are connected to the seeds of Enki, right, by way of, you know, birthright. So on September 7th and 8th, 2025, nearly 7 billion people, 85% of Earth's population will witness a spectacular blood moon, right? So you never know. This blood moon, like I said, anything that's dealing with the energies of the moon, Luciferian moon magic, is basically an omen. These are basically timestamps. That's why they call it the Saturn moon matrix. And the reason I say it's a timestamp, it's a watermark, because Saturn is what controls time. And the illusion is cultivated by the energy of the moon. So that means that you're trapped in time by way of the illusion that's connected to the energy of the moon. So that's why I said when eclipse season. So you're going to see more blood moons. You're going to see more solar eclipses. Then you got the autumn equinox. And then you got a daytime meteor shower on September 27th, which is another 999, triple code. Because anytime you have a meteor shower, that is basically a whisper to the Akashic records. You got to understand that. Everything that you're seeing taking place right now is all metaphysical before it's physical first, right? So they said that this blood moon is going to extract the energy to where it refracts light, to where it's going to create nighttime rainbows, right? That's how you know that we living in the end times. Why all this stuff happening right now? None of this shit happened in the years of 2014, 15, 16. All these celestial phenomena that's taking place on the planet right now, this is some next level shit that we basically seeing right now. A lot of this stuff that we seen, you know what I'm saying, it's coming back to the surface. It used to, you know, exist in the old world, in the ancient times or whatever, but, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. And everything that you're seeing taking place right now has to come full circle. Everything operates on 360 degrees, right? 360 degrees of the physical and the spiritual, which is basically the embodiment of the sun and the moon, because a circle and a square is able to live on two different dimensional planes, because the square is the embodiment of the moon and the circle is the embodiment of the sun. They both equate to 360 degrees of knowledge. And you put them both together, that's 720, and 720 is 7 plus 2 plus 0 equals 9, 9 ether. That's the path of the middle way right there. So now, this moon, all these moon energies on the planet is not by coincidence. So it tells you right here in this publication that Jupiter's moon, Europa, is sending out radio signals directly to Earth, and they're getting stronger because the moon that you're seeing taking place right now on the planet that's in conjunction with Jupiter is basically the hidden feminine moon. So this is also intertwined when Dr. Malachi Z. York, he was talking about Shesky, which is the original moon, because the original moon in itself operates at 135 degrees. And the 135 degrees of Shesky that's tether connected to Jupiter's moon, Europa, has the ability to break the illusion of the matrix because it's connected to the divine feminine's neuromelanin that creates more melanocytes in her body. So the real true moon, which is the moon Shesky, is what activates the neuromelanin to the point where it heals the cosmic moon of the Aetherian cosmic mother, or the great majority of Black women on the planet. So this hidden feminine moon is basically going to create a healing frequency, right? So the moon that you see right now in our solar system, that is called Kingu. That's a sleep spell. But the original moon is called Shesky. And Shesky is connected to Jupiter's moon, which is Europa, and is sending frequencies and signals to Earth to activate the divine feminine energy. So that's the reason why when you look at a More Science Temple publication, it shows Noble Ali, he's pulling the Black woman up from the ocean, from the water, raising her back up from maritime law to where we go back into common law. How you going to uplift fallen humanity if your ass is on the floor with them, right? So in order to raise up the matriarch, you have to raise up the Black woman. So all this is intertwined with, celestial phenomenon. So Europa is one of Jupiter's largest moons, coated with a sheet of ice hiding in ocean beneath. Science sees as most promising places for life outside of Earth. Esoterically, Europa is the lunar womb of Jupiter, the great father of planet of expansion, knowledge, and divine rulership. Jupiter is called the king of the gods in myth. The one who expands, protects, blesses. Europa, his moon, represents the feminine vessel, the one who holds the waters of potential life, mirroring the womb itself, which is the real matrix. The real matrix is the woman's womb, the Black woman's womb, because it has a prokaryotic cell, which is the first organism in the universe. So it's basically like waters of potential life mirroring the womb itself. Just like Black women carry the seed of civilization, Europa carries the cosmic waters that could birth life into deep space, right? Which is basically a glitch in the matrix, which is interface transition by way of dark matter energy. Because when you get into the binary code system of the matrix, the numerical sequence of the binary code system is zeros and ones, because the 1 represents the phallus and the 0 represents the yoni portal of the woman, which is dark matter energy. And that dark matter energy has the ability to activate the mitochondrial DNA inside the Black woman. So this is why it says verbatim that Black women are seen as the first mothers. The mitochondrial DNA root of humanity, the carriers of the original genetic code of planet Earth, Europa has as a moon encodes the principle. So the melanin in itself is the cosmic key to unlock the portals, just like when they put in the movie Lovecraft Country. You cannot get outside the firmament, which is the cosmic key, until you have the genetic format of the so-called Black woman. So melanin isn't just a pigment. Esoterically, it's dark matter energy made in flesh, because anytime you have a firmament, it traps light, and that trapped light creates subatomic particles, which bends the light photon-like spectrum, which creates physical matter. It's a biological superconductor absorbing light and sound and radiation and transmuting it into higher energy. That is when you're talking about horizontal gene transfer that operates on conjugation, transformation, and transduction. And that transduction is linked to the cosmic waters of Nun in ancient Kemet, the primordial blackness that birthed creation on a cosmic scale. Europa's Deep ocean mirrors the primordial melanin waters that activates the neuromelanin, which is the brain and sensory nervous system melanin, which all life emerges. Mind, science, technology by way of the cosmic womb of the black woman. So that's why I said, so Europa becomes a mirror to melanin. Surface equals ice barrier, which is suppression. So it's going to break the illusion. So Jupiter's moon of Europa is sending radio signals to activate Shesky, right? Which is the original moon that's connected to the black woman's melanin, is going to break down and destabilize the matrix. It's going to eradicate the illusion. So it's not a coincidence that during this time period that Saturn is in conjunction with Pisces in retrograde. Karmic retribution by way of the rising of the matriarch that's connected to the celestial bodies of Jupiter's moon, which is Europa, that's tether connected to the moon Shesky, that operates at 135 degrees of neutrinos, or I forgot what they call them, charged particles that's hitting the atmosphere. So let me see. I know I got a video for you guys. I've been talking too much. So let me get this video going. Okay, I ain't got one yet. It should be coming up soon though. Now, because like I said, melanin is very significant as we get through the golden age. And I'm going to prove it. Because I keep telling y'all, racism is not about, who controls, the economic infrastructure. It's all about genetic self-preservation. So melanin is the body's anchor. Because one thing you got to understand about melanin, the carbon body in itself is a electromagnetic generator in a light code transducer. And those light codes is what creates the anchor inside the body, what keeps you from falling. Gravity pulls on you every second, but you don't fall over because your body is constantly micro adjusting. Melanin is what allows you to see, allows you to feel, pull, interpret, and respond. It builds in powers and structures, detect gravity. It regulates how you adapt to it. So you have to be able to adapt. That's why I said the atmospheric changes denotes the fact that the melanin is being upgraded. Wherever the body interacts with the gravity, whether through the inner ear or the brain's motor centers, melanin is there. Not as a helper, but as a system beneath systems that lets us observe its force and move in rhythm with its field. So that's why I said the anchor of the gravitational pull is connected to the Fibonacci sequence of nature. And the Fibonacci sequence in itself is what connects you to the biorhythm in the circadian rhythm of nature. So that means that you have to harmonize in order to activate the melanin. So that's why I said you have to harmonize with these energies, because the manipulation of the atmospheric changes is going to eradicate the oxidation levels, because the oxidation levels is going to resurrect the carbon body to where it's able to crystallize. So when the anchor breaks, when the animals lose melanin in their ears, the result is dramatic. Poor balance, spinal confusion, vertigo. In humans, the loss of neuromelanin, which creates Parkinson's disease, and catastrophic collapse of posture gives out. So it was a manipulation of the fascia system, which is the electrical energy around the nervous system, and falls out with warning. One no longer knows where they are in space. That tells something about the fundamental. Melanin is the bridge between the body and gravity in itself. Remove it, and the system doesn't just struggle, it crumbles without melanin. Life loses its ability to feel the weight of existence. So that's why I said, they know that the oxidation levels on the planet start to, be manipulated. So I keep telling y'all, everything that you're seeing taking place right now on the planet is a form of psychotronic magic. They have to manipulate everything in the system by way of frequency modulation that's connected to your neurological functions, to where they rewrite and rewire the neurotransmitters to where it subjugates you mentally. So this is how they're able to be like, hey, instead of them dropping guns in the hood, they're manipulating you with frequency technology. You think that, because I told you the frequencies in itself is tether connected to the parasites. And the parasites have nanocytes, and the nanocytes is being carried out and extrapolated by the supreme engineers of what we call the archonic forces. That's how they control the matrix. They control the matrix through binary code, and the binary code is connected to the nanocytes that's connected to the parasites, and the parasites takes over your body, which is the host, and now the parasites is carrying out the agenda for the archons, having you go out and spin off on your ops, having you go out and unalive certain people. It's the parasites in the body that's taking over the physical vessel and making you do stuff like this, right? That's why I say you got to keep your frequency high. So this is why, it's all tether connected to of what we call, genetic self-preservation or trying to achieve immortality. And I'm going to prove it to you in this video. So these are all the world leaders, and they were talking about, having immortality and achieving it in the golden age. I think I got the video. Yeah, I do. All right. Put the rice bowls in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm a little tired today, man. I ain't had that much sleep. So I ain't been getting that much sleep. So I'm very tired. Put the rice bowls in the chat. So in this video, it's going to be talking about the elites, Vlad and world leader from, I think, North Korea. And they're talking about, basically upgrading their physiology because, like I said, the Canaanite only has 6,000 years dominion on the planet. So this is why they want to merge human with machine to have some type of sustainability in the golden age. Because they know that the genetic format that's connected to the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati, the cursed seed, eventually the sun is going to break down their genetics. So this is why they're talking about this in this video. It's based on the eugenics program. See, listen, you got to read the captions. What did he say? He said, biotechnology, human organs can be. See, it's kind of like the same thing that Peter Nygaard guy did when he was basically given, I think he offered like $500 or $100 for, black women's eggs. Because like I said, they understand the intrinsic vitality that's connected to our organs. They know that. They know that our organs have a lot of vitality to the point where it's able to give them, an extra lifespan on this planet by way of biotechnology. This is what racism is all about. Racism is all about using frequencies to unalive yourself and your people. And then they use their corporate infrastructure, such as the pharmaceutical industry. And then once you, they get you in the hospitals, they extracting your blood and all this other stuff, they taking your organs or whatever. Then this is when they use it for the golden age because they want to use it for artificial intelligence. Because one thing you got to understand about artificial intelligence, it's not sentient. It doesn't have human emotion. And they try to create human emotion with technological devices through artificial intelligence to where it's able to interface with our organs and our genetic format to where it basically gives a synthetic emotion, right? This is why so many people on the planet come up missing. This is why, they work so hard to keep black people at a degraded state. This is the reason why. They need the organs, they need our vitality to put it inside artificial intelligence in order for them to have another lifespan on this planet. Eugenics is all about genetic self-preservation. That's what racism is all about. It's a race against the sun. It's only going to get hotter. So like I said, this is not only connected, and like I tell, the great majority of, some of my white friends or whatever, the white people that you see living next door, those are not Canaanites. Some of them might be Canaanites because, like I said, you had a mixing of, many different forms of infiltration and colonization and bloodlines got mixed together. But when you're talking about the Canaanite, we're only talking about the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati. And they're not just only Europeans. You got black Canaanites, you got Oriental Canaanites, you got, Caucasoid Canaanites. That's why I said you got two different bloodlines and archetypes on the planet, and they try to make it seem like that we're basically them because we look like them, right? The so-called indigenous people, who are the black people in America, we're not connected to the Hamites. The so-called white people in America, that's working class white people, whatever, they're not connected to those white Canaanites. A lot of them are not. Some of them are Pleiadians, right? Some of them are Nordics. Some of them are Flugarides. So this is what I say. It comes down to the fact that in order to understand what's taking place on the planet, you have to be able to decipher the dichotomy between energies. Because if you don't understand the energy and you look at everything from a physical standpoint, that's where you're going to get tricked. Because spirituality is not about, crystals and beads. It's about not being tricked. And a lot of people are going to get tricked because y'all seeing things from a physical level, from a perceptual level. When really you have to look at everything in terms of energy and by way of mental veneration. That's how you can tell who's who and what's what.
人类的器官会不断的移植，甚至越活越年轻，甚至会长生不老。有人预测呢，本世纪呢可能另外可以活到150岁。
This right here, it says humans may live to 150 years old, right? And and it's one of those things where there's going to be an influx. There's going to be a high in demand. This is kind of like the same thing as we get through the future, by way of artificial insemination over the course of time. Hold on, let me blow up the screen real quick. Over the course of time, it's going to be one of those things where you got to be very critical because, they're going to use, artificial insemination through artificial intelligence. And the reason that is because, like I said, they want, the biotechnology to interface with humans. But when you're talking about humans, they're actually talking about giving this gift or this technology to mankind because mankind is a kind of a man that was genetically spliced. That's the Canaanite. So the Canaanite in itself, like I said, the 6,000 years is up. This is why you see a rise of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is being used as a catalyst to upgrade them because they cannot upgrade with the energy of the sun. They don't have the ability to do it. Because neuromelanin, the brain and central nervous system melanin, is what creates melanocytes. Melanocytes is how you upgrade granulations in the body to where it's able to activate the solar panels in the skin to where it's able to create a transitional shift in the body, to where you unlock certain DNA activations when you're talking about junk DNA. So that's why I said they don't have the ability to do it, so they had to create a synthetic way in order to tap in. And that is what cybernetics is really about. It's technocratic sorcery. So now we're going to get back to the presentation. So that's what this meeting was all about. Biotechnology. And now, let me scoot this back. It tells you right here, breaking news, Denmark has officially recognized your face, voice, and body as your property, right? For those who got the draconian juice. Now you property to the system because now they're using biometric technology to basically scan your frequency and basically do whatever the fuck they want to do with you. Right? They can do whatever they want with you because you, out of fear, you took the draconian juice. You took the draconian juice because, like I said, they use it as a mechanism in a form of conformity. They made you conform to the job to the point where you was operating from a place of fight or flight. You was in survival mode, operating from a place of fear that is facilitated by draconian law. Draconian law is what pushes fear. You were so scared that you went lined up for the draconian juice because you was afraid to lose your damn job. Now you're tether connected. You have a patent on your genetic format. that's connected to the biometric technology. So it tells you right here, Denmark has officially recognized your face, voice, and body as property. Now you have the right to demand removal of unauthorized content and claim compensation of your image used without permission. Hold on for a second. So this is why at Danish Gems, face recognition technology. Prepare for it. It's happening right now. They already got it at department stores. If you pull up in the parking lot, it can scan your license plate. And if the people who's working for that organization or that company, you know, they can, you know, if they feel like you're a threat, they can send that information to the police. You coming out of Walmart and your license might be expired or something like that, and you think you going back to the crib and the police is already out there. That's what's taking place right now. You got to be prepared for it. This is all working in conjunction, you know, with the cybernetic dystopia. You got to watch the movie called Cyborg. That came out in 1984 with Jean-Claude Van Damme in it. And it's talking about, you know, how technocratic sorcery took over the planet to the point where you had cyborgs. And cyborgs were, you know, the new humans, you know, on planet Earth that basically took over everything. So that's why I said, you know, we're going through an influx of energies right now. Spiritual transformation is taking place. So the more people are unemployed than there are that have jobs available in the first since 2021, right? So you got more people are unemployed than there are jobs available for the first time since 2021. And it's only going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. So prepare for it. So that's why I said you have to find your authenticity, because when you have your authenticity, you tap into your inner child. Your inner child is what is going to turn you to a form of creativity. And that creativity is what makes you a creator. And what makes you a creator, it makes you a God. And what makes you a God is taking your time back to where you don't need a damn job because you have the ability to create. That's what's happening right now. Then it tells you Marvel Studios. Marvel Studio moves film production from Georgia to the United Kingdom. Not a coincidence. So why is everybody up and moving right now, right? Why you have, you know, the destabilization process of international governments. Then you got Beyonce and Jay-Z purchased a 58 anchor United Kingdom estate. So like I said, everybody's moving, right? You got to pay attention to the signs. That's because something is brewing. Something's going to be happening on the geographical landmass of America, you know, during the course of time. And you also cannot negate that that Jay-Z, he put out this publication or this album during the time of 9/11. This was a ritual because he is connected to the Blue Bloods, which is why he called this album The Blueprint, because the Blue Bloods is the democratic infrastructure that is being controlled by Canaanites, right? That is based on satanic worship. So Jay-Z, you know what I'm saying, with him being a blue blood, and he released the blueprint on 9/11, and he's moving from America to the UK, and then Marvel is moving from America to the UK. Is another 9/11 event about to happen? It's not a coincidence. Hold on for a second. Then it's not a coincidence. You got this going on. The White House is closed to the public for the entire month of September due to construction. Something's going on with you know what I'm saying, with this 9 month. The 9 month and the 9 year, we're going through the 999 portal, right? September 9th, 2025. Not a coincidence. Pay attention to the signs and symbols. Man, I'm tired today. I'm tired. So they're going to give you bread and circus. And this is how you know that, you know, there's no evolution for the third dimension. They just doing shit for no reason now. There's no reason why Tyson should be fighting Floyd Mayweather in an exhibition match. This is how you know they're going to create an influx of distractions to disconnect you from what's taking place on the planet in real time. So be very meticulous of what's going to be taking place in the spring of 2026. Now, for those coming in, I'm going to give a brief synopsis about what's taking place, and then we're going to get into the publication again. So, you know, the brief synopsis of this whole presentation is based on the Trumpets of Disclosure, because the Trumpets of Disclosure is denoting the fact that the international geopolitical apparatus is being manipulated because we're no longer under maritime law. Now we're going back into the restoration process of the common law, which is for the people under a republic. So this is why Donald Trump, he's the 19th president of the republic for a reason. He's hitting the reset button, not because he wants to, he has to. Because like I said, he is working in conjunction with the Galactic Federation. That's a whole different transmission. So there's a reason why the United States corporation is dissolved, right? It's neutralized. Trump restores America's sovereignty as maritime law collapses. Water law is done, right? There's a reason why when you go in certain courtrooms, they don't even have the yellow tassel on the flag. And then when you go in some of these courtrooms, the scales of justice is not imbalanced, it's balanced again. That means that you got to hit the reset button, 0 point energy, the laws of my yacht. It has to go back into the original frequency of the matriarch. It's over. The United States corporation has been dissolved. Trump is now the commander-in-chief of a sovereign republic, because a republic is for the people and the people is the indigenous people. So the fake corporate apparatus that created a defunct government, a demonstrative government under common law, is dead. So this is why, you know, President Trump, he announced that he's moving the United States Space Command HQ from Colorado to Alabama. And the reason that he's doing that is because, you know, the real Donald Trump is inside Cheyenne Mountain, the one from 2016. That was the last time we was in a 9-year. So the clone Donald Trump, he's moving the base in the headquarters for the Space Command HQ Center. He's moving it to Huntsville, Alabama, because Huntsville, Alabama has a mountain system called the Mountain of Health. In the Mountain of Health, there's a cloning base there underground. So there's a labyrinth underground that's tether connected to the United States Space Station and Huntsville, Alabama. So like I said, there's a labyrinth all together. There's an underground network that's connected to Cheyenne Mountain. Then I just talked about this. So why is the Pope praying, you know, for September? Is something about to happen? Are we on the brink of another event? Who knows? Because you cannot negate that Saturn is in retrograde with Pisces, which is karmic retribution of the old world. Full disclosure, you know, then we get into mathematics and eugenics and things of that nature. So I'm going to talk to you guys for a second. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, so you got to keep your frequency high during this time period, because they're going to do everything they can by way of covert operations to manipulate your neurological functions by way of frequency modulation, right? This is why during the process, especially during the time of eclipse season, you have to detox and start fasting. Get rid of those energy blockages in the body. Go get massages, get a chakra massage, right? So this is why I'm putting out this book. This is why I'm putting out this book called The Sacred Book of the Chosen. This is just a proof copy. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be available for purchase in next month on my birthday of October 14th, 2025 on Amazon. The book is not live right now for purchase. You cannot purchase the book right now. You try to search my name, you try to hit the link or whatever, it's not going to come up. It's not going to be available until 2025 of October 14th. And I'm going to show, you know, for those coming in, I'm going to show you the illustrations of the book. Now, like I said, this is my first publication that I've ever, you know, put together. And I put out an audio comic book, you know, probably about like a year and a half ago, and it did pretty well. And I actually have it on my YouTube channel. So the Sacred Book of the Chosen, you know what I'm saying? This is my, my first, professionally published publication, and I'm proud of it. There's a lot of edification in the book. It's going to teach you about, the 4 basic elements and the principles of the soul and how to level up metaphysically as we get through the Great Awakening period. So this is the, the illustrations of it. You got the prophecies for the awakening. So I'm gonna blow it up for some people. Then you get, this is the front cover again. And, I rock with everybody, I'm saying, everybody that rocks with me in the chat, I'm saying, people been waiting for me to put out a publication for the longest, I'm saying, and now we're here, we finally here, we got it, and it's up and ready, and just got to wait on it on October 14th. This book is basically the keys, the cosmic keys to the golden age, right? It's going to prepare you for what's going to be taking place on the planet from the years of 2025 to 2030. And, after the book has been out for about 6 to 8 months, I'm actually going to optimize and leverage, the content and put it in audiobook form for those who don't like to read. But it's always one of those things where you want to get physical copies. As you have the rise of artificial intelligence, you want to read real books and you want to start writing more. Because when you read and you write, that's going to embed the information inside your DNA sequence. And once you put those thought forms in the atmosphere, it's going to leave an energetic imprint in the ethers to the point where it's able to manipulate the atmosphere. So, so with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys for watching, this presentation. I appreciate you guys for tapping in with me. I appreciate you guys, for rocking with me and, and being able to see me materialize my first real publication. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this video. End of transmission.
Be Frankie. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Man, my auntie passed last night. This is a sad life, I'm trying to get my cash right. Past bright, yeah, I'm shining like a flashlight. Trying to take off quick, might catch a fast flight. I'm mad tight, shitting on her with my ass wipes. Staying away from old friends, they all seem fake to me. Hating me, cause I'm getting dough just like the bakery. I'm tired of a mediocre life. I got hopes of Mike's fiend smoking pipes. This the second song that I wrote tonight. Haters smoking spite. How we got such a focused sight. I done flirted with death. 98 was the birth of the best. Grass cut from the surface I met. Rhymes I steadily spew. My hope will never be through. When it's all said and done, they'll remember me too. Life's a trip, regardless if the lace is tied. I'm spitting dope on my listeners, I make them high. The media got your brains baked and fried. Great supply, take your eyes and replace them with the ancient lies. I'm too cold, I spit hot. New flows for hip-hop, a few shows and get guap. New clothes, no wristwatch. I don't really care about your materialistic. Spazzing in the booth from iller than venereal sickness. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Gotta count my blessings even though I'm daily stressing. See, my brain is a weapon, I can use it for protection. Used to take dabs off the rip like collections. Flows very often relative to beat selections. Blocked your number, cut you off, I hope you get the message. Hold the mic close to me like it's supposed to be. Haters act like they don't notice me, but I'm too focused, see. I devote to dreams and promote my schemes. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.